Welcome to the Creators Podcast. I am Jonathan Hamill, a doctor and writer based in Paris. On this podcast, I will have conversation with guests from diverse fields, whether they excel in medicine, literature, sports, or comedy. They all epitomize excellence in their respective domains. Through these discussions, we will aim to uncover the common threads that connect these creators, delve into their passions, explore their mentors and work routines, and even touch upon their moments of doubt and the dreams that drive them. Today, my guest is Corin NEMEC. Corin is an actor, producer, writer, and director. As an actor, he has more than 100 credits to his name. He is widely recognized for his role as Parker Lewis in the cult TV show Parker Lewis Can't Lose, and as Jonas Quinn in Stargate SG-1. In 1989, at age 18, he was nominated for a Primetime Emmy Award in the Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Miniseries category for the show I Know My First Name is Steven. He has also appeared in numerous films and TV shows that you may recognize, such as Beverly Hills 90210, Smallville, CSI New York, CSI Miami, NCIS, Supernatural, and many more. What is less known to the general public is that Corin is also a skilled artist in the field of graffiti. He's also passionate about writing and has released a great novel, partly based on his life as a teenager, called Venice High. He also writes poems, rap lyrics, and screenplays, and is an avid photographer. You can find him on Instagram at I am Corin NEMEC and on Twitter at I am Corin NEMEC. Corin, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. I'm under attack
I could see.
by this mutant, this off-planet mutant. He came through one of the Stargates. He's been hounding me ever since.
Yes, for those of you who don't have the video, he is wrestling his dog. So, all right.
This is Theo, everybody.
Very cute. All right.
Free. How's it going today? Johnny me lad.
It's
Johnny
going
me
very
boy.
well. Very well
see you.
in Paris. Good to see you. So
Thank
I wanted to start with your decision to move to Tampa Bay, I believe in 2022, because you were living in California for many years. How did that decision originate, and how has it informed what you're doing today?
Well, yes, I lived in California for many years. I lived in the South, in Arkansas and Georgia, until I was 11, and then moved to Los Angeles. And my experience growing up in Los Angeles, in comparison, it was just it was 10 years ahead of where things were at, where I was from, and so when I had a daughter very young, and me and my ex decided that we weren't going to raise her in Los Angeles because neither one of us really enjoyed the experience. But that said, I had put her into we had moved to Texas in the late '90s. I had gotten a place there anyway, and I've had a house in Texas pretty much ever since. One house or another. I've had a few of them, but but I kept a place in Los Angeles as well. So I was bi-coastal that whole entire time. I wasn't just out in Los Angeles, and so but I met. I was shooting a film uh, called Pet Detective. Sorry, Kid Detectives or something like that. Sorry if I'm they changed the name of the movie, but it was Pet Detectives. But obviously, there's the Jim Carrey movie. So, and it's about some kids who are kind of doing the same thing he was doing. But that said, I was down here shooting in the Tampa area with my good friend David Faustino, who was in it with me, and I met my lovely fiance and soon-to-be wife Sabrina while I was shooting down here, and it was perfect timing because my son was graduating, and it was just a perfect timing to meet someone that I've really have fallen deeply in love with and respect greatly, and feel like we have actually are really on the same page in so many different ways. So I had no problem changing where it was that I was living and all of that to be down here, so that we could be together in a deeper, more, uh, a deeper way, and it's worked out fantastically.
Great. And where in this story did you, or when did you meet the Scatter Brothers production team? And
During that
was that
filming,
after you decided to move
it was no. They
during?
were one of the production companies that was working on that same film. So I had met the Scatter Brothers during that. They also put on a really great film festival down here in St. Petersburg, Florida, called Sunscreen Film Festival, and it's a really wonderful film festival. So if anybody wants to, get out of France for a little bit in the summertime. And come to St. Petersburg, Florida, which is a fantastic city, by the way. You would love it. It's actually got a lot of nice history. It didn't sort of just get swallowed up by, by a bigger city like so many kind of historical parts of our cities do eventually. And so it's got some great character, well worth a visit.
Okay, duly noted. So when did you start making films? Because now I believe you're mainly making films locally, right? Or are you still going back and forth to Hollywood?
Oh yes. Well, no, I don't really have to go out to Los Angeles too much. The last time I was out there was when I was working on a film near the end of last year, which will be coming out later this year, called Place of Bones, which is a thriller set back in the late 1700s in kind of the Wild West, and I star opposite Heather Graham, Tom Hopper as well, and it's a wonderful, wonderful script. I mean, just an incredible script. The director Audrey Cummings really brought it to life in a way that other directors I don't think would have been able to, because it's in a lot of ways that it reads like a stage play. There's a lot of character development, which for an actor is rare to get in bigger movies. Ones that are meant for larger distribution. I have to, I equate it almost like the Hateful Eight. It's different, but it's similar because there's so much character development and dialogue and all of this, but it's compelling because what you're finding out about these characters and the story and everything else is very interesting. So much like the Hateful Eight, I think it will have a very long shelf life and be very well received.
So the character development is mainly due to the excellent writing, or is it also due to the good directing? You were talking about
All of that,
the
the actors
director.
as well, of course. Every actor brings their own personal character development to the table, and the background and history that hopefully they've come up with for their character, which enriches it. I in this particular movie, my character is a thief. And he's held up in a ranch house with Heather Graham and her daughter, who the husband had died sometime in the past, and they were living in squalor out in the middle of the desert, basically. And here's this injured guy with a sack of money, and he's stolen it from some other bandits, so they're coming back to get it, and that's kind of the setup. So
Hmm.
but in the character development, the I found that he loves gold so much. I had this gold coin that was from the props department and all of that, and I get to have these kind of clever moments that come out where he goes to his gold coin, kind of like Gollum does with the ring. You know what I mean? Where he's like,
Yeah.
"Hey, it's my gold." So things like that come out in the character development, because if all you're doing is just memorizing the dialogue and performing the dialogue, well, without doing much character development, you miss out on what you can introduce that isn't in the script.
Sure.
Without of course changing the story or the dialogue, you can introduce things to a script that can change the scene. You know.
Yeah, and the fact that you yourself are also writing scripts, does that inform your way you has that changed the way you act? Because I know you've been writing screenplays, and I think you've co-wrote Dead Man's Hand also, which we can talk about.
Yeah, that's another Western. Dead Man's Hand is a Western. Well, myself and Brian Skiba, we first came together. Oh gosh, it might have been in 2014 or so. But we came together and produced a film called Rotten Tail that was based on a graphic novel from Source Point Press, and it's a horror comedy where I equate it to the movie The Fly with Jeff Goldblum. You know, I'm this, but it's a comedy, and so I'm this harebrained scientist who gets bitten by a laboratory rabbit who's been being experimented on and mutated, and he has this fertility serum in his hands, and the blood and the serum and all this gets mixed, and he slowly starts changing from a man into this hairless rabbit, and he goes back to his hometown of Easter Falls to save the city from an evil preacher. So you know, we got together on that, and then we just started producing some other films together. We did a number of Lifetime movies together, some stuff that I wrote, some stuff that I just acted in and produced with him, and we've remained great friends since. And this opportunity came up to take another Source Point Press graphic novel called No Rest for the Wicked by the Minor Brothers, which is a great graphic novel series. There's three of them, so this is the first. This is the first in three in a 3-part series. I don't know if I'll write the other scripts if they make them into movies. Their plan is to do, you know, 3 of these. I hope I'm involved with it, but that said, I had the opportunity to write the initial draft. You know, the first draft of it, and then Brian Skiba took it and he wrote his director's draft. You know, his vision for it. And I really think that's what the Minor Brothers brought to the table. The thing about graphic novels is they're kind of non sequitur. They don't have to have a whole lot of backstory. They don't have to have a whole, you know, it's an easier way to tell a story, and they also don't necessarily have to make sense. You know, that's the one
Yeah.
thing also about a graphic novel. The story at
Yeah.
the end of the day doesn't even, because a lot of times it's almost more about the art, you know, and so when you get a graphic novel that's also got a great story that's compelling and all of that, it's very rich. So I did have to go in there and open it up because it's not long enough, you know, for a feature film. So anyway, a lot of fun with that. Stephen Dorff, Cole Hauser, Jack Kilmer, who's Val Kilmer's son. They're all kind of the headlining guys in it, from bad guys to good guys and anti-heroes and all that. But and then a great, you know, ancillary cast. I play one of Stephen Dorff's kind of, you know, henchman types and all of that. It's not a senior role in it, but it's a great character, and I'm very excited about that. That should be out later this year as well. So
And
yeah,
that's
the writing thing is a
also
big deal. That's that I to answer your question. Also, I think that I think what got me into writing was in rehearsing and practicing other people's material that I didn't feel was written that organically, you know. And I always and often I felt like I was having to, you know, fit the words into my mouth in a way that I felt like, you know, maybe, and obviously this is not a slight on any writers. I'm just saying some of the scripts that I've read, I'm thinking maybe these writers haven't spent a lot of time socializing. You know what I mean? So, you know, you can spend too much time in a White Castle, you know, in an ivory tower rather. You know, White Castle is a burger joint that I despise. Don't spend any time in a White Castle. But if you can spend too much time in an ivory tower and lose touch with that organic interaction with people and places and
yeah.
things, and I think as a writer, that's also really important. And as an actor, you know, it's very important
Yeah, to be
to be able
credible.
to be extremely fluid. You know, like Bruce Lee says, you have to be water,
Yeah,
water.
exactly. So is something you do to get that flow when you're writing scripts or when you're reading other people's scripts? Do you, I mean, especially when you're writing your own scripts, do you say everything out loud to see if it's really, you know, it flows out of your mouth?
Sometimes, but that's usually way later down the road. Once I've gotten like kind of a first draft done, and I go back, and now I'm kind of just doing a sort of a like a fluff and fold, operation afterwards. It's like making sure that
Mm.
everything is nice and neat and as tidy as possible, and clean up as much, stuff that doesn't need to be there, and this, that, and streamlining. For me, screenwriting is all about what you don't need. And I learned from a screenwriter. When I was doing a workshop years ago on screenwriting, he said when he gets a script that he needs to rewrite, one of the first things that he does is go in. I can't remember the gentleman's name. It was so many years ago. It was in like 1994 or something. But he said he goes in and he just starts taking out all the highs, hellos, and goodbyes. So any of the top portion of the dialogue when the character walks in and like, hey, what's up? Oh, nothing much. How you doing? Da, 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 da. And then
Mm.
they go into the meat and potatoes of the dialogue. He's like, what's more interesting? Seeing somebody walk in and go, you can't believe how bad my day was, and da, 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 and going straight
Yeah.
into to the meat and potatoes of the dialogue, or they come in first and they're just, so that was one of the things that he suggested, is that, and once you get rid of all of that fluff and you just have the main, through line, then you can, then a lot of times you end up losing a bunch of pages. You end up losing like 10 pages or so with all of this stuff
Sure.
just snipped out, that's just like people just saying stuff that doesn't matter, which it can be important at times, but you need undertone. Why are they saying something that doesn't matter? It can actually matter. But that said, it gives you then the ability to build up other areas of the story that maybe need some more attention, when
Mm.
you do something like that.
Yeah, and I guess it's the same with the writing novels. You end up like taking out dozens and dozens, hundreds of words before you're finally done. So I
Yeah.
guess that's the nature of the beast.
Hmm.
There's another movie I wanted to talk about. I feel like you're doing a lot of westerns these days. It's
Just those
Blackwater.
two. And I had never
What?
done a Western in my whole career, and
Yeah, I
it's
was going to
been on my
ask.
bucket list since I was a teenager to be in a Western. So, to do two of them in the same year, and to be able to have been a writer on one of them, I mean, that's a dream come true, because I've been a huge fan of spaghetti Westerns, and, and especially the movie The Long Riders. Was one of my all-time favorites. That had the Carradines, the Keaches, and the Quades, all of those brothers playing real historical brothers from the late 1700s, the James Gang, the Youngers, and anyway, so it was a dream come true to be able to be a part of all of that. It's just
Yeah.
awesome. So next on my list is a Middle Ages movie, something that
Oh
takes
yeah,
place during
with nice
those times.
costumes and everything.
Yes.
No, the other movie I wanted to talk about, I guess, is not a western, is Blackwater Blues. I think you also wrote the screenplay on that, right?
Yeah, the Blackwater Blues was, I mean, what ended up happening, we had a deal with a company out in Los Angeles to do a 1 hour pilot for a TV series, and then potentially even to have it independently financed by this company. And unfortunately, 2 weeks before we were set to go into production on the 1 hour pilot, that the financing fell through. And so, which happens. So instead of just throwing in the towel, we switched gears, did a GoFundMe fundraiser, and put our own money into it. So we ended up, and then split it. We cut the script down to a half-hour pilot, which comes out to be about 26 minutes of screen time, with 4 minutes for commercials. So, we got about half the funding, about 15, 16 grand through GoFundMe, and then we put another 10, 12 grand into it. And we ended up having to put more money into it later, but that doesn't matter. So for about 26, 28 grand, we had a full professional production with professional, Steve Weiss directed it. He's a great director locally down he's actually in Florida, but down in that southern corridor. And we had a great professional team of, pro first AD, pro DP, pro wardrobe department. Everything was super pro, but it was like, on the slimmest of budgets possible. But that said, we put it together. The whole thing is all developed and thought out. The only problem that we've been having, even though the little pilot that we did, I think, turned out very well in terms of a proof of concept and something to shop and show what the rest of the show is going to be like. obviously with bigger budgets, more action, more things like that. But the problem that I've had, which many people have in Los Angeles, is that it's a very closed door system out there, and when you do things independently outside of the system, you have to go back and knock on the door and show them what you've done without their help. And a lot of times they have zero interest in looking at it, no matter how good it is,
I
or
guess.
so right now we're in the process of trying to raise all without doing any kind of more fundraisers online or anything like that. We want to raise the funds and do it independently, because we are confident that it's good enough that once it is platformed, it will get an audience and it will make the money back for the investors, no
Mm.
matter who puts the money up for it. And if we do it independently, us and the producers and the financiers, without a network or studio involved, would have direct access to the return on investment via any type of downloads or rentals or
Right.
VODs or subscriptions or advertising dollars. There'd be no middleman between
Yeah.
us and that, which
And
would
also, I guess,
equal
more creative controls, right?
you'd have 100% creative control, and the amount of money that you would potentially make back on the back end would be able to fund all of the future episodes without having to go to investors. So
Right.
you could, instead of taking all of the profit out of the front end on the first season, it would roll all of that profit back into season 2, season 3, season 4, season 5, and then by then all of those other seasons, once they go international and with distribution, the residual income should far outweigh the reinvestment of that money, and the money it would take out of your pocket for the first few years. By reinvesting that, it would take money out of the pocket of the producers. But at the end of the day, what you would stand to gain down the road, you'd be laughing all the way to the bank. It'd be
Hmm.
hilarious.
So when will we be able to see the first show? I
Well,
mean, the first
you can
season.
see the pilot episode. I mean, it's up
Oh,
on Blackwater Blues TV on YouTube. It's on my television channel on YouTube called Corin NEMEC TV under Blackwater Blues. So it is available to be viewed. I highly recommend people viewing it and sharing it and all of that. I mean,
for sure.
the more people do that, the more of a chance we have of making it independently. Because that is the hardest part about doing it. My good friend, good friends over in France who do the web series Noob, that they were able to pull that off miraculously because everybody was coming together and they all had normal jobs and they were just donating their time to it and all of that. And I got to do a couple of episodes with that team and everything. But it's making its money now. It's got a video game that's
Hmm.
associated with it. It's got comic books. It's got, I mean, this thing's become totally branded, and it gets you know um, it's gotten millions of views collectively just in France alone. So when you
Wow,
think population density wise, that's a
that's
huge
great.
success, for
So,
an independently done show. So it is
yeah,
doable. The problem is that I have here is that I don't have a team that's willing to do it for free like they do.
because it's America.
Well, I mean, it's just when
No,
fortunately for them, he's able to shoot it, he's able to edit it, he's able to do all this. It's like one stop shopping, and he does his own time. So now that it is making money, all of that investment he's made on the front end is paying off for them now on the back end. So it's hard to convince an entire team that it's worth it to do that. And so right now it's about convincing an investor that it's worth it to do that, because most independent investors, they don't understand the model of TV series over independent feature, and many independent features, it takes years and years to make your money back on them, because
mm,
it's a one-stop shopping kind of deal. Once somebody's watching the movie, they either like it, they don't like it, they don't share it. They don't have 12 episodes of that movie in
for
order to
sure.
try and make your money back over a period of time. and and a return on investment. So I always think that the series or the limited series and all of that is a far better investment than films. But I'm stuck in a gray zone right now where investors don't understand that, and studios and networks they don't want that. You know.
Okay, we'll follow that closely. I was wondering if we can tie all this screenwriting you're doing now to your time on Stargate SG-1 from 2002 to 2004, because I read somewhere that during that time you started pitching your screenplays to the show's creators, Brad Wright and Rob Cooper. Is that correct? Is that like the first time you
And Joe
shared your
Malozzi as
screenplays?
well. But yes, they always have, they because they're smart. They were always open to cast suggestions for script ideas. They even had, I think they even took some fan suggestions, ideas and stuff, and
Hmm,
bought a couple of episodes from fans over the years too.
really?
I think so. It's for some reason that's ringing true in my head, but I could be incorrect. But that said, I had been in writing for many years. Previous to that, I wrote my first script when I was 18. It wasn't very good, but it proved to me that I could write. I could finish a beginning, middle, and end of a script, and then I went and took some courses on screenwriting with UCLA, and some workshops and stuff in order to understand, you know, how to actually write a script, even though I had read hundreds of them. So that said, uh, I kind of lost my train of thought.
Yeah, what were any of the, did they give you
Oh,
any
they're talking about Stargate,
advice?
exactly. Yeah, so
Yeah.
they left an open door policy, kind of for me, and unbeknownst to them, I'm very passionate about the writing and all of that, and it was a huge thing for me to possibly have some writing credit or write a story for them. And I went up there many times, probably too many times, pitching ideas. It was a constant. It was almost like an obsession for me. And Joe Malozzi helped me out a lot. He really helped me hone my pitches, hone my synopsis, and all of this, to start to look more and more and more and read more and more and more like what it is that they're used to doing in
Mhm.
house. And I learned a whole lot about how you can simplify the writing process and still get a lot of detail and tell a story from Joe Malozzi in terms of your pitching of it, without getting into too much fluff. You can pitch your idea and have just enough detail, just enough, entertaining factors in it, that it becomes compelling.
This
So
is just from the
finally,
just from the pitch,
yeah,
not even the
exactly.
screenplay. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
exactly. Well, they write all the scripts to make sure that they're consistent. So all what they're
Oh, okay.
buying is what's called a beat sheet, and that's just a descriptive of every single scene that takes place with no dialogue written. So you don't write any
Oh,
of the
okay.
dialogue and all of that stuff. And then if there's out points in the story that they don't like, if there's other things, if there's just stuff that they want to, just change because it doesn't fit the world that they've created, then the writers there take that, they buy it from you, you get story by credit, and then they write the actual, text
Got
and
it.
and and everything else and turn it into a Stargate episode.
Right.
So what is in there is my story. But what I didn't do was write any of the dialogue.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah.
What was any of the best advice they gave you to pitch the story right? Was it really just eliminate, keep it the simplest as you can?
Well, yes. I think many of my pitches, there was too many complexities to the storyline. I was just going way too deep into the sort of mythology of it all, and just they'd have to go down a whole different rabbit hole if they made some of these ideas. I think, I don't know, maybe, but eventually it was about simplifying what is the mission, what is the need and want out of this episode, what are they trying to accomplish by the end of the episode, and then can it tie into the bigger picture of the world that they created in Stargate. So it was about figuring out what's the mission, what is the the stakes, and that's really what it is what is this, what is it that's compelling about the situation that you've put the characters in?
Mm. Yeah. And very interesting. So I wanted to go back a little bit and wonder if you can tell us about the children theater group called Center Stage LA, because I think that's where you started acting, or at least learning about acting, right?
It was the first professional acting class that I was in, and it was the artistic director was named Kevin McDermott, and what a fantastic director for young adults, young kids as well. I mean, I think that I think he taught from age probably 8 or 10. You know, when you get younger than that, it's like training a puppy. You know what I mean? There's too much, too many squirreling. It's like, yeah, it becomes difficult. But probably I don't recall anybody being in there that was younger than 10. But it was like, and then up to 17. So,
Mm.
and in that class, he did a lot of improvisation, and I think that it was his use of improvisation that really got the best results, because a lot of times, especially as a young person, if you haven't completely freed yourself up from being self-conscious and aren't afraid to make a fool of yourself or have egg on your face or be a ham or whatever the case may be,
Mm.
being a ham, not being afraid to have egg, doesn't mean you're going to be a good actor, but it does mean that you're going to be willing to try to be a good actor. You know what I mean? But you could be a fantastic actor, but just don't have the confidence to reveal it. So when you get into
Right.
improvisation, uh, it frees the person up from being focused on the dialogue, the script, the world that has been forced upon the actor, and allows them to create their own world and play just like a kid does when they're in their bedroom alone with their GI Joes or their Barbies or their little Lego figures. They're changing their voices, they're doing this and this and
Mm.
this, and there's an entire world that they've created, and they're completely 100 embracing the reality of that world. And that's why children associate life with their stuffed animals. They endow those props with so much life that if you grab one too hard, they're like, "Don't hurt Teddy." So it's going to be okay, Teddy. And they will, and they're projecting life onto this object that is obviously not animated,
So
and
that's what
incapable of
happens.
having consciousness, you know. But that's the power of the imagination, and the power of acting, and the ability to endow your props and the set that you're on and the wardrobe you're wearing with the same type of imaginary reality as a kid endows with the props that they have in their
Of,
bedroom.
of course, if not, you're just an adult dressed as a ham, and you're, what am I doing here?
Yeah,
And you're
exactly.
done. How old were you at the time? About
I,
10, 11?
Well, I was 11 going on 12. It was in the last, it wasn't too long after I think I turned 12 that I started in his class. But and then within 6 to 8 months, he had a showcase for agents and managers. His particular company was very well respected by the community, especially by agents and managers who are looking for the next possible big young actor, because when you pick the fruit just before it ripens, it lasts the longest. So agents and managers, they want the ripest fruit so that they can milk that for its longevity as it goes down until it tires out and they can put it out to pasture. And like they do so easily in the arts and entertainment industry. But so I just fortunately was kind of a little bit of a natural, because I was already a ham and I had some natural talents. So and I landed an agent rather quickly. Uh, Signed with one of them basically that night, and then went in, and I had to audition for them, but they were like, "We love you. We love you. Come in." And so I had to go in, and back in the day, when you had to go in and actually audition for agents in person. So I went in, auditioned for the agency, and they signed me, and I went on my first commercial audition that week, basically
Wow.
a Suzuki motorcycle commercial that Paul Ventura was casting, and Paul Ventura became my greatest advocate. I don't know what it was. He just saw something in me that he liked, and he put me in probably a half a dozen or more commercials by between age 12 and 16. So it's basically almost a commercial or two a year, which those brought in a lot of money back then. When your
Yeah.
residual income in commercials was pretty incredible. So being that young and making money, I was like, whoa, this is a trip. I can do what I love to do and get paid for it. Like I'm beside myself with joy here. you know
And was that
and
something that you decided early on that you wanted to be a professional actor? At that time, you
I
already knew?
decided when the movie Goonies came out, which my father was assistant art director on, and when that film came out, even though the actors in the movie are roughly a year and a half or 2 years older than I am, when they shot it, they were around 12 years old when they shot it. So when the movie came out, 11, 12 years old, when the movie came out, I was right in the pocket of that age range. And my mom, having
Right.
grown up with my mom as a graphic artist in the music business and in the theater business, I was around the arts and entertainment world in her life, and then in my father's life, he started out as an architect, designing buildings and stuff like that, and ended up when an architectural firm he was a partner in out in Los Angeles folded. He met some people socially who were like, "Hey, man, you're such an amazing draftsman and all that stuff. You should look at set designing." And he was like, "What?" And I think one of the first jobs he might have done was even the TV series V or something like that. He
Oh,
did
I
a lot of
remember
early
that.
stuff
Yeah.
as a set designer, and he rose up the ranks very quickly because he's so immensely talented. It's incredible. The guy's he's an absolute genius. This guy, when it comes to what he does, and so. He had worked on Goonies, designing the ship and all, and other. Mainly the ship set was his main set. I'm sorry, I lost my flip flop here somewhere.
Nope.
It's driving me crazy. He designed the interior ship set and all of that, and just did such a fantastic job. And when I saw the
It's a
adventure these kids
great,
were
great
going
movie.
on, yeah, I just saw the adventure these kids were going on. I understood that the reality was conceptual. That they built these sets. That they were in wardrobe. That there was cameras there. That there was crew people behind. But what startled me was that here I was living in Georgia with my buddies, and we were out in the woods playing Dungeons and Dragons and Vietnam War stories and stuff. And we got sticks for guns and pine cones for hand grenades, and you know what I mean, and branches for swords, and all this stuff. And I realized, dude, I can do this same exact thing, except
I
they'll
get
put
paid.
me in the actual costume of the character, and they'll build an entire set that looks like where I'm actually supposed to be. Somebody will film it, and then I'll get to go and watch myself live this life that isn't my own. And even at 10 years old, when that when that reality dawned on me, it was like an atomic bomb went off in my head, of like this. Whoa, you mean I can pretend to be other people, and somebody's going to build sets for it, put costumes on me, allow me to pretend to be another person. Then they're going to film it, edit it together, and show it. And then I can sit back and watch myself being another person, living another life in a whole nother reality. I mean, I was just like, that's crazy. That's crazy. I don't watch a
And
whole lot of my stuff anymore, but when I was younger, I was obsessed with seeing how the overall story turned out,
right.
and
Yeah.
enjoyed watching as a third party. I wasn't watching for my performance as much as I was watching for the overall quality of the product. And so I think I probably stopped watching a lot of my own stuff when I started doing a lot of producing and acting in a lot of the sci-fi originals. I would all the creature movies.
Wow, that's fascinating. Also, the fact that you actually did it, not just, dreamt about it, because I guess a lot of 10 years old might dream about it, but then, you forget about it, or maybe you're not in the position to do it, or you don't put yourself in the position to do it. But,
Yes, I
you
mean, I
know,
had a lot of support from my family. Both of them are artists, so both of them, were very supportive of me and my sister getting involved in the arts and entertainment world. My sister went to the University of San Francisco and has a bachelor's in theater arts, and she studied theater, all that. Now she's a very, very well respected first AD in the film and
Oh,
TV
wow.
business out in Los Angeles. Works nonstop. She's incredible at what she does. Uh, but so it was going to be a natural progression. I actually kind of had thought that I was going to probably go in the direction of my mom and dad, and be more in the design side of things and all of that. But it was that early inspiration and the quick rise to prominence as an actor that changed the course of any other direction that I may have had in mind previous to that. It was like getting on. It was like getting on a space shuttle, and deciding you want to get off after they get down to one. You know what I mean? It's too
Yeah.
late. The thing is
Yeah.
launching, and you're just gonna have to sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride, because it's not going to be over until it's over. And then well, having kids and all of those other responsibilities that come with that, and then you end up with mortgages, and you end up with this, that, the other, and the career becomes a job, becomes a business, becomes work. And but the one benefit to this is that I've never lost the art of play and thoughtful imagination. And I think that the projects that I do work on, do produce, am involved in creatively on that side of things. Maybe smaller budgeted, but they're fun experiences for everybody to work on.
Yeah. No, I was going to ask because you're part of I guess, a rather small group of actors who were very famous as teenagers or even children who continued acting and producing and writing throughout your life. So I guess one of the keys is that you never
You
lost
leaving, hon?
interest or passion.
So, love you, honey. Come give me a kiss. Sorry, it's a
No
necessary
worries.
interruption. Everybody's gonna have to
Go for
pause.
it.
Bye. It's my honey bunny Sabrina. Hi.
Hi, we've
Look
emailed.
gorgeous. Um. So. Yeah. Yeah. But it's a career that's been a blessing and a curse. I wouldn't want it to be any different. I would have made some different choices over the years, but I think that extricating myself from Los Angeles to raise kids in Texas was well worth the damage that it did to my career not being readily available. And also I stopped playing the promotion game and the Hollywood star walk of shame game back in the early 90s, but before Parker Lewis even. I think, no, maybe just after Parker Lewis ended. It wasn't long after that I stopped using a publicist, and I stopped engaging in actively trying to promote myself out there in that type of way. I found it to be extremely shallow. I found it to be contrived. The on-air interviews were all pre thought out. The questions were already written. There was no organic discovery. They wanted anecdotes. They wanted something funny. They wanted this. They wanted that. They didn't want an
Right.
interview. You know what I mean? And all of these,
Yeah.
and then the way that I was being portrayed in magazines, the clothes they were putting me in, the way they were styling my hair. I'm like, who is this guy? And my friends, like I said, I grew up as a graffiti writer, and a lot of my friends were a bit rough around the edges, some street kids, and they weren't afraid to tell me that I looked like a little bitch in this Tiger Beat magazine. They're like, "Yeah, look at you, man. What are you, Superman on this bar stool? What are you flying in this picture for?" And I look down, and it's like, sure enough, they have coaxed me into laying on a bar stool and like flying like I'm Superman. And there I am, just looking like a complete jerk off, in Tiger Beat or Teen Beat or whatever magazine, and I'm like, I'm a dancing monkey. I'm a dancing monkey, you
This was
know.
this was during the Parker Lewis
And
years,
before
maybe.
that, before
Before
that,
that,
because I know my first name is Steven. Well, I
right?
had done, even before I knew my first name is Steven, I did the last season of Webster, playing Nikki Papadopoulos' live-in cousin. And so being on Webster at the time at 13 years old, I started popping up in the teen magazines and all of that. And then once I did I Know My First Name is Steven, and I was nominated for an Emmy, at 15 years old, that was, I was all over these teen magazines. And then you flash forward a couple of years after that, and Parker Lewis, and then it's just, every single one of them, I got at least a page or something in there or something. And then, and I which is fine. I don't care, that wasn't it, but it was how I was portrayed when I actually went to the photo shoots. So by the time I got to Parker Lewis, I was far more sensitive about how and what I was doing on the side, because I'd gotten so much shit up until I turned 18 about the ridiculous choices I made, between the age of 13 and 16, 16 or so. By the time I was 17 is when I was telling the teen magazines and all of that stuff, like, I'll come and do your photo shoot. I'll do all of that, but I'm not wearing, unless I like the clothes, I'm not wearing them. And unless I like the hairstyle, I'm not doing it that way. And unless I like the setting that you want me to be photographed in, I'm not taking pictures there. And so it kind of boiled over in season 1 of Parker Lewis when I was doing one. I was in New York, and I was supposed to do this big teen magazine shoot and all of that. And I think I went to it with like my buddy Jerobi from Tribe Called Quest, and my buddy Kev Hicks, who's in a rap group called Gumbo now. And I think I went down to this shoot, and it's like they got ridiculous clothes, they got a ridiculous setting, and we're down in the meatpacking district of New York. You know what I mean? And I'm dressed in my hip hop, kind of flavored clothes, my streetwear. And I'm like, you know what? We're in the meatpacking district. What's more interesting than that? Instead of doing this, let's just go outside. You guys can take some photos of me here in the meatpacking district in this great environment, dressed exactly how I am, and then we'll all be good. Everybody will be happy. You'll get what I want. I get what I want. And they ended up putting out a scathing interview saying that saying that I was not, I was rude. I was this, I was not flexible, blah, 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 blah. All I was doing was standing up for myself. I was never once rude. I never once yelled at them. I was actually having a great day. Me and my buddies were laughing. We were having a good time. We're hanging out in the green room, whatever. And they're getting set up. And all I was saying was no. But no,
so that was the last interview.
What they're used to hearing and not what they wanted to hear. And therefore they did this scathing article about me that made me just look like this prima donna. And it's like, how am I a prima donna if I don't want to look like, a total chump in your magazine? That's just me having some integrity. And so that was the final straw for me. And I said, I'm never doing any of these again.
Wow. Got it. So just to come back to the show, not the photos around the show, but Parker Lewis, because that was a big show in France as well. I guess around the world.
Still is. Vive la France.
Yeah.
Vive la France.
I know. I mean, I watched it. It was dubbed in French, obviously, but all my buddies, we all watched it. It was great.
Yeah, I've met the actor who does my voice. His name slips my mind right now, and I'm so ashamed of that because he's done my voice for years. He did my voice like everything I've done, even Stargate, and so I'm totally ashamed that I can't recall his voice. But he's such a great guy, such a wonderful fellow. I mean, if I recall his name.
Oh well, we'll look for it. I'll put it in the notes.
But put it up, down below my chest here.
So do people still quote iconic lines from the show when they meet you? Is it that big? Are you still synchronizing watches?
Yeah. There is some synchronizing of swatches, and I hear I don't know if Not a Problem was around obviously before Parker Lewis. Of course it was. It's not like it's some totally original saying, but synchronized swatches is original because you're saying swatch, not synchronized watches. So. I don't know if they translated it to swatches in French.
Or if they did
watches.
I'm discovering this. I thought it was watches.
Yeah, in English it was swatches, and we went to the swatch company when we were starting the show to get sponsorship from them because I had arranged some sponsorship with Adidas because Adidas was already sponsoring me because I was all into the hip hop scene and all of that. So I got sponsored by Adidas. So I was always wearing Adidas tracksuits, and so I basically looked like Run DMC.
Yeah,
You
basically.
know, but so when the series went, I hooked up the people who ran the sponsorship department with Sony TV and all that, and had them sponsor our show, so I could wear Adidas in the episodes and all of that, and and emulate, because if my character Parker Lewis was a hip hop kid. He had a high top fade that was like a Gumby. He was wearing the flashy shirts all buttoned up with the slacks and
Yep,
the high top Adidas. He looked like Kid and Play. He looked like Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. You
exactly.
know, it's like that was what I was going for. You know what I mean?
So so we'll talk now about graffiti because I know you're very passionate about it, and you started really young, right? I think you started even when you were still in Atlanta.
Yeah, I started graffiti really when I was 10 years old, when I got into breakdancing. And my breakdancing name was Kid Cruz, and it was Cruz, uh,
Right.
with KID, obviously, Kid Cruz. But and I had my buddies, my little crew, because I grew up in predominantly I grew up in these giant kind of semi subsidized or totally subsidized apartment complexes and stuff like that. And you're talking like 6 blocks by 5 blocks. Like, I mean, it's like a city. You know what I mean? It's not
Oh,
just an apartment complex. So you get a whole crew of different kids, that live there and everything. And we were just into breakdancing. That was our thing, and we used to go to the local skating rink called Sparkles, and they had a dance floor there, and we'd get in breakdancing battles with other kids from other areas of town, and everybody had their breakdancing name, and that's where it started from. Was like, going in the back of Sparkles, and we're all hanging out, and you're scratching with like a pencil or some other crap on the back of the building, Kid Cruz, and in like some bubble letters or something ridiculous like that, because it was just part of that world, of that culture. And then I moved to Los Angeles, and there was this kid Vision, that was his graffiti name, Vision, and this other cat named Spy 1000, who were, unbeknownst to me at the time, they were legends. And these guys are only in like ninth grade, mind you.
really?
And these guys are already like legends, like in terms of like how much they get up, and how good they are as artists. And when I got into, I was taking a graphic design class with the best teacher ever, this guy Mr. Mendez at Walter Reed Junior High in Hollywood, in Studio City, rather, in North Hollywood. And these guys were in my class, and when I saw their graffiti art, with the crazy b-boys and the big oversized shoes and the big oversized hands and these wild style letters, and I was like, what is this madness? you know and their tagging styles were just like, these weren't bubble letters and little arrows on top of it.
Right.
I was like, this is like some next level. I have to learn this. I have to, this has to be me, because at that time too, breakdancing was kind of going out, skateboarding was coming in, the sort of like a skate rat scene that was sort of hip hop meets punk rock meets skateboarding meets graffiti art. That there was this world that was sort of developing, with kids that were like sort of like, you know living in gang neighborhoods, but didn't want to be in the gang, but were still really rough around the edges and wanted to go out in the streets and get down, but didn't really want to die for it. But that said, it was a wild time in the '80s in the graffiti scene, and you really had to have, what they say in south of the border. You had to have cojones. You had to have, uh, 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 you know a lot of, will. And had to be rather fearless. But
Because you had to belong to a crew, right?
well, yeah,
And
I am still in a crew. I mean, the crew that I got into in 1987, the Chosen Few, is one of the, it's a crew that's still around today and has become more worldwide. There's crew members all over the planet now, and it developed into an art collective, uh, called ours the Chosen Few, and then there was a subsidiary of it called Angels Will Rise, AWR, and then AWR became this collective called the Seventh Letter, and Seventh Letter is this worldwide well respected group of really talented graffiti artists from a lot of different crews that have all come together in that, and then that became another even bigger crew called MSK, which is like international and has a little bit more of a street type of a vibe to it. They got like, more guys that are still doing train bombing, and by train bombing I mean painting trains. Okay, people, painting trains,
Yeah.
not blowing them up.
Yes. Just to be
And
clear.
doing a lot of illegal graffiti and stuff like that. Whereas like Seventh Letter is a little bit more of the fine arts world of graffiti art, and then MSK, which stands for Mad Society Kings. That is a little bit more of like the street side of it.
So what is the like the designer part of graffiti? Because I guess all graffiti is uh how is it framed? Because I feel like there are very
Well,
different
the
sides of it.
graffiti art and street art, which has your poster art, it has your stencil art. There's different elements. You also have installation art that comes with it. Where you're actually installing some type of three-dimensional object into a location where it once wasn't, in order to
Mm.
either express a point of view or just enhance the look of a place with something interesting. But you, a lot of this really does stem out of the graffiti culture, obviously, except not necessarily in France, because of Black Larat, who had started doing the street art, poster art, and stencil art, predominantly the stencil art in France back in the 1960s. Which his art is exactly where Banksy got his whole style from. If you look at Black
Okay.
Larat back in the 60s, doing, and his stuff was in protest of a corrupt system. So he was going all around France painting these stencils of rats, saying that basically saying that France's politics is infested with rats. So you can see that nothing much has
Oh.
changed since the 60s. Uh, so the rats are still in power. To the Bastille, I say, to the Bastille. But
There you go.
so the culture of in France, I think, is a little bit different. I would say, and historically, that Black Larat came around way before the graffiti artists came into play in the late 70s, early 80s, mid 80s. Before that started becoming a thing, he had already been doing that sort of thing back in the 60s. So
Mm.
similar to a guy, I can't remember which city it's in. I think it might have been. Um, I don't think it was in New York, or it might have been one of the boroughs, but back in like the early 70s or whatever, this guy used to write cornbread. The word cornbread, that was his
Mm.
nickname in his neighborhood, and he went everywhere and he would write cornbread, and nobody else was doing it. You never saw a tag anywhere, and it was, so it's interesting that how it all picks up and then it circles back around. So it went from graffiti artists taking over advertising space and claiming it for free, to people like Obey, who made the street art scene, the poster art thing, world famous, and showing that you can actually, from a street artist, you can brand yourself in the street art world. And if you do enough traveling, and you have a good enough idea, and you can brand yourself
Mm.
in the right way, that you can turn that into merchandise. That merchandise can become a business. That business can become an empire. You know,
Right.
so there's ways of being able to slither your way through that world. If you have a good enough gimmick and you have some financial backing, you can certainly make it big. But then you have guys like Risk, who's a famous graffiti writer I've known. He's been around. He's one of the most famous graffiti writers in the world, but he's out of Los Angeles, and he's gone into painting whole buildings and stuff. So his fine art is out of this world. He does, and he
Mm.
goes, he does sculpture art now that has a graffiti feel to it. He does neon art now that has a real graffiti feel to it. He does, and then he paints these entire buildings. So he wraps the entire building in this just wash of all these colors, and and he makes enormous amounts of money doing this, you know.
Right. So
So
I guess it depends also what where you want to go with it, and because you could
yes,
also just,
exactly. I mean, you
if
have
you
you
can also just want to keep it local and like paint a
Yeah, that's
wall,
fine. It
and
all
that's it.
depends on what your passion is for. You know, for me, you know, there's been times when I probably could have switched gears and really driven to brand and create a brand. You know, for Pike 169, for TCF, and did that brand and everything. And unfortunately for me, the reason why I didn't do that is because I am working professionally as an actor and writer and all of this stuff, and a lot of the stuff that I'm doing, you could say is not exactly legal, you know. So the blending of those two worlds in a very dramatic fashion, you know, might not have suited my what it is that
Got
I'm
it.
doing that's actually making me money and giving me, you know, survivable wages sometimes. You
Yes.
know, which is in film and television. So I was unwilling to risk one thing for the other or this or that. So eventually I think that it'll all just come full circle anyway. I mean, I've become so busy, I haven't even been able to really keep up with my street art antics like I was, you know, up until I was really very involved, engaged in it up until the you know, the shutdown, the whole COVID shutdown and all of that stuff. That pretty much just, you know, and it's been very tough to get the momentum back since then.
Well,
But
I
it's a
followed
big
you a
passion,
little
a big part of
bit.
my life.
Yes, I've seen that you like doing the clownfish.
Yeah, the clownfish are a lot of fun. Yeah,
Yeah, those are
yeah, I
nice.
love the
Yeah.
clownfish.
Do you still write? Are you still involved in writing rap lyrics? Or is that something you did when you were a
No, I mean
teenager?
it's what I was doing because I was in a you know, I mean, I was rapping when I was young. I actually did I did a demo tape when I was 15 with DJ Speed from NWA, which and recorded down in his studio in Compton and everything,
Wow.
and we became, you know, pretty good friends after that. I actually got kicked out of Eazy-E's studio by Eazy-E because I was a white boy in the studio. And
Really?
so I won't say in the exact way that he put it, but he basically said, "Please escort this Caucasian gentleman out of my studio.
In those
He's
words,
not welcome
exactly.
here."
Okay.
But I did get to meet Easy E, so that's pretty epic. But I started rapping young, and I did some other, you know, I had some other, you know, I did a whole entire album called Starship of Fools, with myself, and Shane Mooney was one of the rappers. His father is a very famous stand-up comedian named Paul Mooney, who's been around since God. He passed away recently, unfortunately, and Kevin Hicks was involved with us, who's in that band Gumbo now I was telling you about, and a number of other people. Balthazar Getty was our DJ and one of our music producers, as well. And before that, me and David Arquette and Balthazar Getty had a group called the 13th Floor when we were like 17, kind of like
Oh,
a
wow.
Beastie Boys type of thing. And I have one of our old freestyles we did on SoundCloud. I think it's SoundCloud, it was one David sent to me not that long ago that he had found and digitized, and so I posted it on my yeah, SoundCloud. So there's a Corin NEMEC
That's still
SoundCloud. You
around.
can find it out there, and I have the whole album. I have the whole album that we did for Starship of Fools. I just haven't. It's just never been digitized, but eventually I'll digitize it and just drop it on SoundCloud for fun. And I rapped on UMTV Spring Break live at Daytona Beach down in Miami with the brand new heavies doing the backup band stuff, and with Ed Lover and Dr. Dre and all that. I was written up
Wow,
in
very
Source
cool.
magazine for my rapping antics at Ed Lover's birthday party in the early '90s, and so. But that's what led me into the poetry was, you know, I found that I was more interested in writing. Uh, I call it kind of metaphysical poetry. Really, is what I started kind of with. Is this? There's one of my books is called Numbers: Urban Poetry for an Open Mind, and in reality, it's all mostly about metaphysics and all that. That's what I was really into at the time,
Hmm.
and still am. You know, So it's and I was a huge fan of Omar Khayyam's The Rubaiyat as well, which is just fantastic book of poems that are very, very, I want to say that they were so urban to me. When I read his Rubaiyat, I was like, yo, this is hip hop. Like, this is like ancient hip hop. Like, this dude was spitting lyrics. All his analogies and everything, making analogies about grapes and wine with sex and love and all of this stuff. And he's just, and he would, they performed this poetry, to people in back in the Bedouin tent days when they're going from one tribe to the next, and all that famous poets coming, and he gets out there and just spits mad lyrics at them and around the oasis, and they're just like,
Wearing
woo,
Adidas. So first time I hear Omar Khayyam compared to with rap. So you
I
heard it
mean,
first.
it inspired me, but it inspired me in a more poetic direction to take that style of writing, that free flow style of rap, the rhythm of rap,
Mm.
but to write about something that you can chew on and take home and do something with, something that can change your entire way of thinking, by one poem, to be able to get to the end of that poem and go, whoa, whoa, wait a second. Is reality what I think it is, or am I playing games with myself?
And are you still? What are you writing? Either writing or reading for inspiration these days for
Currently,
poetry?
yeah, yeah, we got to wrap it up here in about 8-10 minutes. So that's a great way to get to an ending. There is
All right.
right now I have a couple of projects going on that I'm very excited about. I mean, I'm going to be producing some stuff as well coming up. Some stuff I didn't write, but I have two films that are in, besides Blackwater Blues. I have two other films that are in different stages of development. One is called The Shutdown, and it's a romantic comedy that takes place during the height of the shutdown, when everybody's lives are falling apart and you're going broke and your business is closing, and all of this, and in the throes of that, finding a romantic situation that takes you out of a depression that is lamenting. So it's a wonderful small budget romantic comedy, and then the other one I'm working on with also a very well known graffiti artist or muralist, the Vitale brothers, Johnny Vitale of the Vitale brothers. He's local down here in St. Petersburg, and he made a great little trailer for a movie concept called the Mini Lights, which is this phenomenon that occurs. Well, it occurs all over the world. These fairy lights that appear in the swamps and stuff. People call it swamp
Mm.
gas or whatever. It appears in marshes. It's these little floating lights, these
Right.
green lights that apparently can drive people mad, or if you follow them, you're never seen again, or so I strung together a very compelling script that ties the phenomenon, from an experience that's happening to people locally, but that ties it to a phenomenon that's been going on for thousands of years, kind of thing. And it's a sci-fi. It's sort of like Stranger Things meets Close Encounters with a little bit of Stand by Me.
Amazing.
Yeah,
All right. So I know you have to go, so we can wrap it up, as you say. Thank you so much, Corin, for taking the time to be here. It's been great.
yeah, definitely. And we'll do this again down the road after some of these films actually come out, and
Yeah,
then
I'd
we
love
can
to.
have more interesting conversations about them, because I can't give anything
Yeah,
away, about the stories too much right now.
exactly. Well, it will be my pleasure.
Right
So
on, my
once
man.
again, people can find you on the Instagram at I am Corin NEMEC. Thank you, everyone, for listening. If you enjoyed this conversation and if you would like to hear
Yeah.
more, don't forget to like,
And
subscribe. Sorry.
one last thing, most important
Yes.
thing, never forget Parker Lewis, ne perd jamais.
Ne perds jamais. Exactly. Oh, I can see your French is still very good.
Oui, oui.
Wait. All right.
Yeah.
You can find all the information about this podcast on my website. If you want to check it out, it's hamilljonathan.com. All these conversations are available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you, Corin. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
And see
you.
you soon on The Creators. Ciao.
Ciao.